Picture this. A cold case file, thousands of years old, sitting on the detective's desk. The victim? One of the most magnificent creatures that ever walked this planet. 4 tons of fur, tusk and thunder. The woolly mammoth. Gone. Vanished. And for decades we thought we knew exactly who did it. Humans. Ancient hunters with spears and fire and a serious appetite for megafauna. Case closed, right? Wrong. Because when scientists started actually examining the evidence, the bones, the DNA, the climate data, the soil, the story they found was nothing like the one we'd been telling. And the real killer? Still lurking in the evidence, right in front of us the whole time. Welcome to the coldest cold case in natural history. And trust me, the twist ending is going to blow your mind. Let's set the scene. Woolly mammoths were an extinct species of elephant. Enormous, about the size of modern African elephants, with large, long tusks and a thick coat of fur that allowed them to thrive during the ice ages. They once roamed tundra habitats across Asia, North America and Europe. These weren't some niche little critters hiding in the corner of the ecosystem. They were the kings, the apex herbivores, the engineering crew of the ancient world. These large herbivores acted as ecosystem engineers, maintaining the grassland. Their continuous grazing prevented the growth of less nutritious mosses, shrubs and trees, while their trampling helped break up the soil and cycle nutrients, ensuring the dominance of productive grasses. A mammoth didn't just live in its ecosystem. It built it, maintained it, was it. And then, one day, they were gone. For 5 million years, woolly mammoths roamed the earth until they vanished for good nearly 4,000 years ago. 5 million years. That's not a species that trips over its own shoelaces. That's a species that survived ice ages, glacial cycles, supervolcanoes, and every catastrophe the planet could throw at it, for longer than most species even exist. So what finally did it? That's our cold case, and like any good detective, we're going to start with the obvious suspect, the overkill hypothesis. Cue the dramatic music. The overkill hypothesis proposes that human hunters wiped out mammoths and other large ice age animals. It's a compelling story, and honestly, it makes intuitive sense. Humans show up, mammoths disappear. That's what lawyers call circumstantial evidence, and what the internet calls proof. The theory gained serious traction in the scientific community, and became the dominant narrative for a generation of researchers. Ancient people, armed with spears and coordinated hunting strategies, allegedly swept across continents like a prehistoric extinction machine. It's dramatic, it's satisfying, and it has just enough truth in it to be dangerous. Because here's the thing, humans absolutely did hunt mammoths. That part is not in dispute. The hairy cousins of today's elephants lived alongside early humans and were a regular staple of their diet. Their skeletons were used to build shelters, harpoons were carved from their giant tusks, and artwork featuring them is daubed on cave walls. We even made musical instruments from their bones. So yes, humans hunted them. But did humans kill them all? That's where our first clue cracks the case wide open. Clue number 1, the kill sites don't add up. If ancient humans systematically hunted the woolly mammoth to extinction across multiple continents, you'd expect mountains of archaeological evidence. Kill sites everywhere, spear tips in every bone, a prehistoric crime scene on a global scale. But that's not what the record shows. In North America, the archaeological record contains only 16 confirmed sites where humans killed or scavenged any of the 38 large mammal genera that went extinct, and only 5 of those genera are represented. 16 sites, for an entire continent, for an entire extinction event. By contrast, from the same time period, roughly 90 kill sites exist for animals that survived, including bison, elk, moose, and deer. If humans were conducting a continent-wide slaughter of dozens of species, the physical evidence is remarkably thin. Think about that for a second. We have more evidence of humans hunting bison, which didn't go extinct, than we do of humans hunting mammoths, which did. Something doesn't add up. A detective worth their salt looks at a crime scene and asks, where's the body? Where's the weapon? Where's the motive? And here, the weapon evidence is shakier than it first appears. No clear evidence of hunting exists at the few sites containing both Clovis points and bones of mammoth or other large animals. Although more than 10,000 Clovis points have been recovered in North America, mostly at campsites and in storage spots called caches, none have been found embedded in bones of big game. 10,000 spear tips, 0 embedded in mammoth bones. That is a suspicious absence. Now, to be fair to the prosecution, clue number 2 shows humans were definitely capable. At Kraków Spadzista in Poland, Archaeologists found a flint point fragment embedded in a mammoth rib, making it the earliest direct evidence of mammoth hunting in Central Europe. The attempts to kill mammoths at Kraków-Spadzista can be interpreted to mean that mammoth hunting was not infrequent, and there must have been a good possibility of success of such actions, so humans could do it. They did do it, but doing it occasionally opportunistically is a very different thing from doing it so efficiently that you erase a species from 5 continents. Picture a single fishing boat catching fish from the ocean. It's fishing, it's real, but it's not the reason the ocean is empty. And here's where the case against the human starts to truly collapse. Clue number 3, the timeline. Although humans and woolly mammoths coexisted for millennia, the shaggy giants disappeared from the globe between 4,000 and 10,000 years ago. Coexisted for millennia. Humans and mammoths shared the same landscape, the same resources, the same world, for thousands of years, and the mammoths were fine. It's only at a very specific moment in time that everything falls apart. And that moment lines up with something much bigger than a spear. Changes in climate shrank suitable mammoth habitat from 7,700,000 square kilometres 42,000 years ago to 800,000 square kilometres, a roughly 90% decrease by 6,000 years ago. 90%. Let that sink in. The mammoth's livable world, its food, its shelter, its entire ecological identity shrank by 90% in geological terms, basically overnight. That is not a footnote. That is the headline. And to understand why, we need to understand the world the mammoth actually lived in. Clue number 4, the mammoth steppe is gone, and that changes everything. About 25,000 years ago, Earth's largest land biome, the mammoth steppe, began to disappear. Throughout the last glacial period, the Arctic was wreathed in a vast grassland that supported as much animal and plant life as today's African savanna. The ecosystem hosted extinct megafauna like mammoths and woolly rhinos, and at its greatest extent spanned from Iberia to eastern Siberia, and across the Bering Strait into Alaska and Canada. This was the mammoth's kingdom. Cold, dry, productive, and absolutely enormous. And then the planet warmed. Its decline was primarily due to rapid climate change, as the Earth transitioned from a cold, dry glacial period to a warmer, wetter interglacial period, the Holocene. This shift led to substantial changes in global rainfall and vegetation. The wetter Holocene climate allowed marshes, lakes and forests to encroach on steppe vegetation, leaving large herbivores like mammoths without a suitable habitat. The grass disappeared, the forests moved in, the wetlands spread, and the mammoth, perfectly engineered for a world that no longer existed, had nowhere left to go. Imagine you're a polar bear. You're perfectly built for ice. Your fur, your paws, your hunting strategy, everything evolved for a frozen world. Now someone melts the ice. It's not that someone hunted you to extinction, it's that your entire world dissolved beneath your feet. That is what happened to the mammoth, and clue number 5 from the ancient DNA record makes this brutally clear. Geneticists analysed ancient environmental DNA and proved it was because when the icebergs melted it became too wet for the giant animals to survive. Precipitation was the cause of the extinction of woolly mammoths through the changes to plants. The change happened so quickly that they could not adapt and evolve to survive. Too wet. Not too hunted. Too wet. The grasses they needed were drowned out by a warmer, wetter world. The woolly mammoth went extinct primarily because of loss of habitat due to changes in temperature, while human hunting acted as the final straw. The final straw. Not the whole haystack. The last straw. But here's where the story gets genuinely stunning. Clue number 6. Some mammoths escaped, and their fate is the most heartbreaking chapter of all. The last population of woolly mammoths was isolated on Wrangel Island off the coast of Siberia 10,000 years ago, when sea levels rose and cut the mountainous island off from the mainland. A small group of mammoths, marooned on a remote Arctic island as the seas rose around them, survived when their mainland cousins did not. The isolated mammoths, who lived on the island for the subsequent 6,000 years, originated from at most 8 individuals but grew to 200 to 300 individuals within 20 generations. 8 individuals, the founder population of the last mammoths on Earth. 8 animals standing on a frozen island, rebuilding their species from almost nothing, while the pyramids of Egypt were being planned and built on the other side of the world. The last known fossil population remained on Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean until 4,000 years ago. around 2000 BCE, centuries after the dawn of human civilization and the construction of the Great Pyramid and Sphinx of ancient Egypt. Let that image settle: woolly mammoths, alive, on Earth. While ancient Egyptians were building monuments that still stand today, so why did even those survivors eventually go? Clue number 7, the Wrangel Island mystery, and it's the strangest clue of all. The Wrangel Island mammoths' genomes showed signs of inbreeding and low genetic diversity, but not to the extent that it can explain their ultimate and mysterious extinction. Scientists initially suspected inbreeding, that the small founding population had simply poisoned its own gene pool, but the DNA said otherwise. Researchers can now confidently reject the idea that the population was simply too small and that they were doomed to go extinct for genetic reasons. This means it was probably just some random event that killed them off, and if that random event hadn't happened, then we would still have mammoths today. We would still have mammoths today. That sentence should stop you cold. The last mammoths weren't doomed by evolution. They weren't hunted out. They weren't genetically broken. Something sudden happened. Something we still haven't fully identified. The researchers suspect that they died out due to short-term events such as extreme weather. One example is an icing event that could have covered the ground in a thick layer of ice, preventing the animals from finding enough food. That could have led to a dramatic population decline and eventually to extinction. Short-term or catastrophic events are suggested as the cause of extinction. Think about what that means. A small herd of mammoths on a remote island, already weakened, already isolated, already genetically squeezed, and then one brutal winter, one catastrophic icing event, one season where the food was locked under a frozen crust, and that was it. Not a dramatic human hunt. Not a slow genetic collapse. A bad winter. The last mammoth on Earth may have simply starved in the cold, with no one left to help and no way out. Now let's bring the whole case file together, because this is where the detective steps back and sees the full picture. Suitable climate conditions for the mammoth reduced drastically between the late Pleistocene and the Holocene, and 90% of its geographical range disappeared between 42,000 years ago and 6,000 years ago, with the remaining suitable areas in the mid-Holocene being mainly restricted to Arctic Siberia. The collapse of the climatic niche of the mammoth caused a significant drop in their population size, making woolly mammoths more vulnerable to the increasing hunting pressure from human populations. There it is. The true killer isn't a single villain, it's a conspiracy. Climate change destroyed the mammoth steppe, the ecosystem that fed and sustained a species for millions of years. That collapse shrunk the mammoth population down to vulnerable remnants. Human hunting, real, documented, and opportunistic, applied pressure to a species that no longer had the numbers or the habitat to absorb it. And then, for the last survivors, a sudden catastrophic event delivered the final blow. Humans lived alongside woolly mammoths for at least 2,000 years. They were even around when the pyramids were being built. Their disappearance is the last big naturally occurring extinction story. The real killer wasn't the spear. The real killer was the world changing faster than a species could follow, and humans just happened to be there, hunting the last survivors of something already dying. We were the final nail, not the hammer, and that distinction matters enormously, not just for history, but for right now. As one researcher put it, this is a stark lesson from history that shows how unpredictable climate change is. Once something is lost, there is no going back. Precipitation was the cause of the extinction of woolly mammoths through the changes to plants. The change happened so quickly that they could not adapt and evolve to survive. A species that survived 5 million years of ice ages, glacial cycles and predators couldn't survive a rapid shift in rainfall and temperature. The mammoth steppe collapsed. The mammoth followed. And the last few, clinging to a frozen island at the top of the world, were finally taken by something as simple and merciless as a bad winter. The cold case is solved, not with a dramatic human villain, not with a smoking spear, but with a changing planet, a vanishing ecosystem, a dwindling population, and a series of cascading bad luck that no creature, no matter how massive, no matter how ancient, could outrun. The mammoth didn't lose to us. It lost to a world that stopped being its world. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most haunting part of this whole story, because we live in an era where worlds are changing again, faster than ever before. The Mammoths cold case isn't just history, it's a warning. If you made it this far, you just solved one of science's greatest cold cases. Drop a comment below, do you think humans deserve more blame, or does the climate get the conviction? I read every single one. And if you want more deep dives into the ancient mysteries that science is only now cracking open, hit subscribe because we've got a whole caseboard full of them waiting for you.